Well, ladies and gentlemen, we said in the last episode with this man, we'd be back late August, early September. What we didn't tell you was it'd be 2 years later. We are back with the one and only, the master, I'm going to call him that, of zebra finches. He won't like that. But it is, of course, Peter Harrison. Peter, it's good to be back after a couple of years, mate.
Yes, it is. It took a while, but you do get busy with these birds. So you know, the days run into the weeks, and the weeks, the months, and as you rightly said, 2 years. You know, it's the time elapses. You know, about being a master, I don't think my missus would agree with that. But, I try my best.
Well, Linda's not here yet, so we'll say that.
Yeah, I try my best.
But it's been just over 2.5 years, nearly 75,000 views of our first film together. So well done for that. It's one of the best viewed videos on the Canary Room channel, which is ironic because it's not about canaries. It is, of course, about this man's passion, which is the zebra finch. We will follow Peter's progress over the last couple of years. We've got, I can already see, it's kid in a candy store time again, everyone. There are some incredible birds. We saw some wonderful birds last time round. We will continue to pick Peter's brain. We will continue to see some top quality exhibition zebra finches today. So, you know what to do, everyone. Grab yourself a cuppa, sit back, and as always, enjoy the show. So, Peter. It is September. It's a couple of years after we were gonna come back, but it's been an exceptional season for you, both in terms of quality, which is all important, and good numbers as well with the zebra finches this year.
Yeah, it has. I think I hadn't been long in this new bird room when you first came here. And it did have a few teething problems, and the birds didn't really settle as well as I'd hoped. I was thinking of altering it in some ways, but this last year has sort of brought back my faith in it, really, or given me some faith in it, because I've had a really, really good year this year, and I guess that's, you know, where we always say to other people, you know, you have your good years and you have your bad years. I had sort of average years for 3 really in here. The quality of the birds was good, but I didn't get the depth of quality that maybe I had the first year you came. But this year is, I would say it's pretty close, if not emulated, 2020 for me. So, you know, happy days, really.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of perseverance, Pete, isn't it? It's what we talk about a lot in the hobby, is that there are ups and downs, and you know, you need that resilience. I think the key thing to being a top champion breeder is the resilience. It's to be able to take the knocks that come in and out of the bird room and sort of bat them off and move on forward, but also stick to those methods and the methodology which has served you so well over nearly 50 years now. Now, he doesn't look it. Look, he's like Peter Pan, this fella.
I wish it was.
Of keeping these wonderful birds. And I think that mindset and that mentality is what's really, really important. And I know last time we were here, you know, you talked a lot about the admiration for Phil Warne and the word, the sort of the feather work that you picked up from Phil, and one of the things, and you know, I've watched the video with Peter countless times, and one of the things that you talk about in there is you know, looking at the zebra finch not just in a silhouette but in a 3-dimensional way, and that sort of pear shape of the body of the old border, but also the strength of the head. And we've got some birds. I mean, there's birds all around us here, but the head quality, the overall quality is outstanding, Pete. But the head quality on some of them, I just pointed one out before off camera, and you said, "Yeah, it's only a baby," and it's got a head bigger than me.
Yeah, it's only 2 months old, that bird, you know. So, yeah, I mean, obviously birds come in, in a complete package. So, you can't get too possessed with one feature or another, such as heads. But, many years ago, I think if you look at most things, whether it be a horse or, a flower, or need I say, even a girl or a woman, the first thing you look at is the face and the head. So it's not unrealistic to draw people in with nice head features, and from a young age, everything seemed to follow on from that. If you got the head right, proportionally in those days they weren't as good as they are now. But if you got the head right, the shoulders and everything else seemed to coincide and come along with that. Maybe that was where I'd kind of missed it a little bit in the early days with the feathers, because clearly that impact of the feathers was altering the features not just of the head, but the shoulders and also the kind of three-dimensional side of it. I never really saw that when I was younger, and even to a degree judging, with people that I respect. To me, not enough judges look three-dimensionally. They look at them sort of two-dimensionally. And you can get a nice view of the bird in that respect, but there's always more to it when you look across the top and across the front of a bird.
Yeah, and I think the point you make there is one which I think is really important, and that is about it's the sum of the bird that the head sets the quality off, but actually, you don't want to be obsessed with one feature. No. And I think, often certainly in the canary world, that people do obsess about a specific feature, and then the bird itself is out of proportion, it's out of balance, and it doesn't quite have that top class.
Yeah, I know there's been in the last sort of 15 years, maybe 20 years, I've had a number of people you speak to, and they're obsessed with a little beak, it must have a little beak, and as I say, the beak is very important for setting the head off, and indeed the cobby shape of a zebra finch. But there's reason and there's ridiculous, and I think in some cases people are just too obsessed with this little beak. Cameron Diaz would look pretty good even with a big nose. That's what I'd say, but you'll probably cut that bit out, Matt. No.
Oh, I quite like that, Peter. Might leave that in. I like that. I like that. She would. There'd be no doubt about that. So, Pete, last time we were here, we looked at some, and I'm going to put them on screen again, and I make no apology for this. We looked at a pair of fawns that you had, which were absolutely outstanding birds. All of the birds that we showed, I think, were outstanding birds. My knowledge of zebras, you'll be pleased to know, hasn't improved over the last 2.5 years. I've watched the video a few times, but my overall knowledge. But I can see around the room. I can see another strong swathe again across the colours, and as we talked about last time out, it's not about the colour, it's about the type, it's about the bird. But they look like there's some very nice fawns here. So I think now, if it's okay with you, what we'll do is we'll have a little look at some of the birds from this year, and you can chat us through.
Certainly.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I might put one or two of the birds that bred those birds.
Yeah.
Because obviously with zebra finches or with any bird, you go through a 3-year change, which it will be in breeding season since you were here. The personnel change, so what was here has now sort of metamorphosised into the birds that are currently here. So it might be interesting to see, a couple of those generations and hopefully where they've progressed.
Yeah, and I think that undoubtedly it'll be interesting. And I think one of the things, and again, being at the sort of top of the game for, I'm going to say 5 decades, people, you don't look old enough.
No, not 5 decades.
No, four and a bit. 2.
3.5. Yeah.
But I think that's that drive to keep progressing is what separates the people at the top of the tree out, whatever the hobby they're in. drive to keep moving things forward, and that dedication and commitment to keep moving things forward, I think you've either got it or you haven't, but it's in the ingredients of all of the top champions that I know, that there is that drive to not settle and to keep moving forward.
I think that, it's not something that's a deliberate action. It's just something that you, over the years, you get accustomed to and realise that, there's not just myself that's trying hard with these birds. So, like most things in life, other than politics, things progress. And if you stand still with them, or you're not prepared to strive to move forward or to improve, other people are. So, if you want to stay competitive with anything, you've got to constantly, keep up in your game if that's possible, but up in the level of the birds, and the more ruthless you are with what you're happy with, it pushes you on. I'm a show person. I mean, it's for me, it's all about shows. So to a large extent, the results is what I'm interested in. Not necessarily, winning shows, but the results at the shows indicate, where I'd like to be, or whether I'm at a level that I'm kind of comfortable with. So, when you assess the birds, you're constantly trying to breed something or produce something that have a bit of a wow factor, and if you just sit back, for example, a friend of mine did a sort of a, not like your professional version, but a video of my birds. I think you're looking back 1995, something like that. Those birds in relation to today were literally like pet birds. I mean, they were great birds in the day, or they were good birds in the day, and did very well. But I mean, they've moved on so fast that if you were just, well, these are lovely, I'm happy with these, I'd still be showing them. I'd be right at the bottom of the pile, which nobody wants to be at the bottom of the pile.
No, but I think as well in that, Peter, I think, you yourself and the work that you've done, you sort of, you drive the fancy forward, don't you, in continuing to push the development of the bird and the shape and the style of the bird. I think that the hobby needs people like yourself that have that drive to continue to progress, and so the hobby doesn't stay still. There's no facet of the hobby that I'm aware of where birds of 20 years ago would compete with birds of today, because dedicated fanciers like yourself have continued to push and continue to drive and continue to create and evolve the model and the quality of the bird moving forward.
I understand what you're saying there, but I mean, they're not necessarily everybody's cup of tea. I understand that. Some people like different things, as one or two people commented, on your first film. Everybody each to their own is my motto. But like a guy that I looked up to many years ago, who was very successful with zebra finches. I remember him saying that that the changes in the birds, I don't particularly like all the changes. But if the judges are picking them, and that's what people want, you've got to go with it. And, thankfully for me, some of the styles and things that I'd like to think, along with others, have developed. The majority of people like that style, and certainly in other parts of the world. So, that's something I think everybody should be quite proud of, really.
Yeah.
Not knock it and go and try and go back 20 years. What's the point in that? If that was the case, we'd probably still have footballers on muddy pitches, wouldn't we? And an orange ball.
Bring back the orange ball, I say. We know last time round we saw you've got a picture of a zebi on the wall there.
Yeah.
And we talked about the sort of straight back and the golf ball or tennis ball front on it. And is that, obviously it's coming up to show season now for you, and is that sort of, when you're putting the pairs together, is it that in your mind that creating that perfect zebra, have you got that image? I guess what I'm asking you, Peter, is when you go to bed at night and you close your eyes, do you see in your head the perfect zebra finch?
I better be careful with this answer. You know, because it might get X-rated. Me going to bed at night, what do I think about? No, you are accurate in that, you know, having birds so long, you do become a little bit obsessed with it. So, yeah, I do think about these things. But really, I mean, my principles on them is you know, I try and select heavily on things that I'll put up with and things that I won't put up with, things that excel in things, you know, certain features that I really like. But of course, or I would say the overall bird, the ones that are sticking out thinking, well, they're pretty close to perfection, even though there's never been a perfect one. So what I'm doing is kind of trying to play a percentage game. So if you look at those birds and think, oh, that's a cracker. And then I'll think about maybe when I'm in bed, after I've had my cocoa, I'll think about the background to that particular bird. And, you know, some of the birds, not too far back, but maybe in the last 3 or 4 generations. And I'll start thinking then as to maybe another bird that I have, or the partners that I could use for that bird to bring out the best features or emphasise the features more of those 2 birds than by pairing it to another one. So I'll go through my mind then as to the background of the female. Now, if there are bits in there that I feel are a slight weakness on both sides, I'll stay away from it. If I'm trying to get something out of them that would make that bird a bit better, and there's a double up on those features on either side, then that instantly will trigger off in me a desire for that pair. Now, I know this year I number my boxes different. That's a difference. I'm not very good at doing things in a methodical way. But I'll literally put a number on the cage front as to that box. And there was a pair that I've coupled together, pair number 11 it was. I remember saying to a good friend of mine, you know, I've paired a pair up, you know, they're actually in box number 11, which ironically has been a lucky number for me with birds. And I said, I've got a feeling that those birds will produce they're as good a pair of birds as I've ever paired up in my head. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to produce the best young ones I've ever produced. At first, I thought, oh no, I've bred better birds than those, and maybe odd individuals that we may look at are better. But a little bit like a horse in a race, they're coming on the rails, and I look at them and I'm kind of looking, I'm thinking, not only I got it right, but I wasn't far away there. You know what I mean? So for me, it's a percentage thing. You're playing the percentages of, you know, the top birds, and you know, I think that's not being arrogant, but the closer they are to the winners, the closer you are to achieving more birds of a level of the winners. That's what I'm trying to say. I think I might have mentioned it in the first film. You know, my father once said to me, you know, the best apples fall nearest the tree, and I do believe that.
Yeah. No, and I think that's you know, that sort of that mentality and that mindset and that sort of focus, and then, you know, when it works, there's a real reward to that, because sometimes it doesn't always work.
No, not at all. It doesn't.
But I think when it does, Pete, it is really special. Right. Well, let's leave it there for a second. When we were last here, there was a pair of fawns which, and we can see them on screen now, and 2.5 years later, they're still outstanding. But this is about looking forward, and this is about progress, and what we can see on screen at the moment is a real demonstration of that progress, isn't it? Because
I hope so. Yeah, I mean the pair that you're speaking of were a standout pair of birds. You know, for me, I call them. For me, they were like breakthrough birds. They just had some little, big dimensions on them that were like seams that hadn't been mined before. So, you know, basically what we're looking at there is 3 generations really. You know, the sort of the first offspring was a little bit thicker, if anything, but shorter bird. And it's amazing that with purring, as we discussed before, to another bird that I understood the background of, we seem to have almost got back to the original pair, you know, the grandparents. The cock's just not behaving himself at the moment, but when we do get them sort of together, you'll see the improvements around the head and neck area of the birds.
And I think that's the sort of thing that you know you're looking for, isn't it, in any stud of birds, is that improvement. And sometimes I think one of the important things is that, you know, sometimes you can see a bird that comes out and it doesn't quite produce what you think it will do, but actually it's got all of the packages within it, and that's where the patience game really comes into the mix, where it's a line that you're backing your judgment on. And you're saying, no, okay, I know this is going to come through, and it absolutely has in bucket loads.
Yeah, when I say I know this is going to through, nobody knows, but you have a gut feeling about what birds kind of produce, like baking a cake. You know, if you put so much of an ingredient in, you know, and balance that up, you'll get a similar tasting cake. So with the feather use and also the genetic background, you can not predict what you're going to get, but you can predict within a certain parameter.
Yeah.
And I think that these particular 3 cockbirds show you that even though you may lose a bird, which is always, when it's one of your better birds, is always disappointing, if you've got enough around it, you can always get it back, and to a degree get it back slightly different, slightly better. You know, that's the key.
So, Peter, I think, you know, when we talk about, you know, developing that line of birds, I think we've got in front here, we've got the 2 cocks that we've just seen, so the father and son, and then we've got 2 absolutely stunning fawn hens with them as well. And you know, you will be like every great bird keeper, you know, very, very sort of observant, and you'll have that critical eye, and they'll see things within those birds that, you know, you'll look to improve. But by Christ, they are absolutely stunning, and you are talking fine margins there. You must be, you know, you must be like a kid at Christmas when you see these in the cages like that.
Yeah, as I said before, you know, it has been a particularly good year. It's a good, you know, crop. I think it's too dismissive a word, you know, for birds. They're like people to me, but yeah, I think that when you look at birds and you produce them, I think you mentioned before it's coming round to show time. It's actually not quite that for me, and you'll notice on the males that the tails are short. They're only sort of halfway down the tails because they had a lot of broken feathers in them, so they are growing new tails. But yeah, I think you know what you'd said before. If you look at those birds, you know, the original pair from the first film, he's the father of the cock on the right, which is a little bit shorter. But as I say shorter, he's nearly touching the roof as we speak. But I sort of paired that to a female to produce, you know, the cock to the left, which does have more sort of substance to him. He as he looks at your front on, which he's doing at the moment, you can see the width of head and the rise and back skull. So there's a definite improvement there. I mean, he's 3.5 months old, so there is more to come in him. So that pleases me in the fact that I've moved from sort of 3 generations of birds there and really lost nothing, you know. That kind of makes it feel like I've done my job right, because I'm the guy that makes the decisions on what pair goes to what. And I think we'd mentioned before that it's background and also gut feelings and visual appearance that what blends. That's where I come from. In the case of the 2 hens, you know, they're bred from basically similar, if not most of the same families as the two males. This year's been particularly good for fawn hens. I've always produced, well, say always, I've managed to produce nice males, but I've always bred more quality females than males. But this year, the females are I've at least 20, 25 young hens that look like those two. So I've got to be well pleased with that.
Yeah, and that really, I guess, because the key thing you've talked about the showing, and that's a sort of a reward for your efforts. But the key thing is as well is having that genetic pool to pull from to keep moving forward, and that kind of volume of quality hens. You're not taking one or two. You can take a number from that. But the pool is big enough. I think one of the things you said to us last time, you're not really bothered about the colour of the birds. You're all interested in the type of the birds. When you've got a pool of that depth to pull from, I think that helps you maintain, doesn't it? It helps you maintain and continue to develop the stud forward, because you've got a volume of birds to pick from. You're not having to pick substandard birds to go into the mix.
Well, I mean, the only word for that is crucial. I mean, when you've got a depth to your birds, of course, things happen. You make mistakes yourself. You have bad luck with some of the birds, or some of the birds don't quite breed to the level that you want. So if you've got a good pool of birds, some of them will get it right. And then I suppose you can say who's a clever boy then, but the ones that you've got wrong or didn't work for you don't matter as much. But when you're relying on, a purr here or a purr there, it's difficult. I remember those. When I say remember those days, I'd like to forget those days. So yeah, if I get a pool of birds, which this year for sure is fawn hens, I treat them like gold. As somebody once told me, treat them like gold, and because you realise the importance that those particular group are going to make my job easy, and you know what you're going to get from that group.
Yeah. Last time we were here, I mean, it was difficult for me to pick which was my favourites, but the creams took a bit of a shine too. And you mentioned last time out that the creams were something you wanted to develop and you wanted to work on and continue to develop. I think you had some really nice cream hens last time round. You got another nice cream hen in there, haven't you?
Yeah, for me, she's a little bit special, that bird. I remember sort of seeing her come from the nest, and then at about 4 or 6 weeks old, she just literally blew me away, and I thought, this bird is special. It really is special. Once again, it's only really got half a tail in there at the moment, but yeah, I mean, those creams are sort of something that now I'm getting more of a grip on. I think when you came last time, I've always liked them, and I've had success in. I think 1991 I won the Zebra Finch Side Show with creams, but that's a long time between drinks. So, I feel now like I am getting to a point where I will use those birds, with the fawns that you've previously had on, and see if we can get somewhere there where I get a little bit more out of the creams, and maybe those creams, particularly in case of the hen, I'll get a little bit more, out of the fawns. So it's almost like it's not an outcross because they are linked, but it'll just give another dimension to that sort of couple of birds. So as you said before, I'm not particularly rigid and fast on what colours go together. I'll have no problem with pairing either of those birds to the fawns next year and see where we go with those.
And I think that sort of fixation on type and quality first, and then colour as the kind of overlay is really important, isn't it? And I think sometimes in lots of studs, and I know had a conversation on the way here with one of my pals, and talking about canaries, and sort of said, oh, I've concentrated on putting clears and clears together, and actually that's restricted me, whereas actually there shouldn't be those kind of colour restrictions.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. You're restricting, what you do. And as I said, for people who aren't in the UK, I understand that your parameters are different because you've got colour issues which are more important or score more points than type. Thankfully for me, I don't work in those parameters in the fact of, type has always been here. Not the only priority, but it's been a main priority, the cobby nature of the bird. So that's what I'm trying to build towards, and the other bits go along with that. So, yeah, I don't limit myself into thinking, a clear has got to go with a variegated, or a cinnamon's got to go with say, a green bird to produce, something else. I just tend to go with what really is appealing to me at the time. And in the case of, the cockbird is a really nice bird, but the hen is one of those birds that, if I live for another 20 years, I certainly won't forget that hen in any generation. If somebody told me that I could improve on that bird, in the next 5 years, and that wouldn't be good enough, I would laugh. But I hope I'm laughing because, that's progress, hopefully. Well, that's as good as it gets, for me,
No, stunning bird. And then in the cage to their right, then we've got a couple more.
Yes, we have, yeah.
So, Peter, I think, one of the things that, you talked about is sort of putting things together and them coming good and those parents coming good. We see the father to the hen we've just seen here, which is another cream cock, but a slightly different shade of colour.
Yeah, I did touch on it on the first film. That's one of the, the slightly more degree of difficulty with creams is the shades on them become quite noticeable because they're like a pastel colour. The slightest difference in depth of colour, and it shows out, as in this case, that one bird doesn't match the other. But the reason I've put those particular birds in, or the cockbird in, is that's the father to the hen we've just looked at. And I think you can see from the head, the roundness on the head and the overall shape of the head, you could see why I was using that bird and wanted basically to get the qualities out of that bird onto a number of youngsters. He's lost a few feathers, but his head is as good a headed bird as I think's in the room. So yes, and then of course that's another offspring from him. It's not as good as the first hen we looked at, but she's still a very nice bird.
Yeah, a very useful bird. And one of the things that I think is fascinating about the feather type here is that, again, previously we've talked about the sort of intermediate feather, but the feather quality on these birds is absolutely outstanding. They've obviously got some size to them, but that hasn't come at sort of rough, loose, sort of buff feathers. There is a sheen on the birds, which, you can see with the naked eye from whether we pick it up on the camera, but you can see from the naked eye from some distance that feather quality, which is the fundamental of any good showbird, isn't it? That feather quality, but that feather quality is outstanding.
I mean, I'm used to sort of looking at birds from a feather angle. So So the first thing I look at really is, I don't score them, points out of 10, but it'll initially register me as soon as I see any bird, a different bird, what kind of grading of feather that bird possesses. And what I'm trying to aim for is particularly, the first two pairs of fawns and the first pair of creams that we looked at, that kind of, where the bird looks made out of all one piece. It doesn't look like it's been made with a head that's joined to the tail, or the tail. It looks like it's been made from one block of wood. And there's only quality feather that can give you that. If you've got too hard a feather, in the case of a zebra finch, it will look almost ungainly or leggy. Whereas with a nice, smooth, sort of intermediate feather, you just get almost like a barrel appearance, and that's something that I was lucky to get from the Canary days.
Yeah, I think that. I've never heard that analogy before of one piece, but actually, as you say it, you've just sparked something in my head there. As understanding that it's a sort of. It's a whole, and it's got that quality all the way through it, and that feather essentially is shaping the quality.
Yeah, and the other facet to that is you want that appearance of so smooth, it looks like it's been polished, or it's been cut out of wood or glass. That definition. Tight birds, it's all definition and lines or silhouettes. Yeah. And there's only that quality of feather will give you that.
Yeah. So Peter, last time we were here, we looked at obviously the wonderful fawns. We looked at some outstanding quality normals, and we're looking at some more outstanding quality normals. This is, to my untrained eye, that cock is an absolute belting bird, and the hen is also. I mean, the type on that hen is incredible. So, am I right?
Yes, you are. I'm pleased with them. I mean, I've not bred as many normals as maybe I have in the past, or as many quality ones as in the past 10 or 15 years, but I'm particularly happy with the cock. A little bit different to my... He actually has a really good colour, which is not something I set about trying to produce, but the whiteness underneath of his belly and his face is quite striking. The hens, very, very sweet shorebird. I'd say they're not quite as powerful as the fawns and creams that we've seen, but they are nice ones. I do have one or two other, outstanding normals to show you, but they are sort of a different sort of let's say match to the others. The others wouldn't match each other. They go quite well together. So yeah, and then I say I have a particular silver cockbird that I'm very interested in using to the normals, as I said before about the creams to the fawns. So I'll kind of, hopefully, and it is hope, we'll open another channel up where we can produce a number of silvers that look like the normals, or as many,
And is that a sort of using the normals and using the quality of the fawns as well? Is it sort of painting the picture where they're almost the sort of the frame, if you like, and then you're bringing in the colour, either the cream or the silver, and you're taking it that way, but you're going back to those strong.
Yeah, I think, from early days, as being a novice, you kind of, over the years, and there have been some years, you kind of realise that the normals, and particularly the fawns, they're the big lion's share of the top award winners, over the years, and that's not been through luck or through people's preferences. They've just tended to be the better birds, and I think some of that is because there's been more of them produced over the years than anything else. But yeah, I've always tried. I try to keep, to keep a close watch on my normals and fawns, because basically you can spin any other colour from those birds, and those other colours, again, like the example I gave before, as creams and silvers. Some years you get a lot, some years you don't. It's a bit like buses. When you want one, you wait an hour. Then when you don't want one, 3 come past you, immediately. So yeah, the normals and fawns, certainly in the UK, but are a key to a successful stud of birds, really. Particularly one or the other. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have both, and I've had some outstanding ones, over the period of time I've had birds. But yeah, one or the other. I think whether it's pieds, black-breasteds, black cheeks, you need normals or fawns to keep putting the quality into them. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a trinity of birds up here, Pete, or trinity of cages. The normals that we've seen on the end, and the more that cock settles in the cage, the more a really powerful bird. And you talked about that depth of colour on him, and it looks painted, it really does. But I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, I've looked in all of the cupboards and there's no paintbrushes here. And then in the middle you've got another normal cock. I'm assuming that's a normal cock. And then on the end you've got what is, it's been, I think, a couple of years in the making, this, because I think the last time we were here you were saying, I've got some really nice silver hens, but I haven't quite got the cocks for them. Well, you certainly have now, mate.
Yeah, just... Like I say, I hope you've not been rummaging in all my cupboards. You might have found something you didn't like. But yeah, the normals on the end are more sort of the style of normal that I've been used to. And what I'm trying to show here is that we can use, as we did the creams with the fawns, we can use silvers with normals to much the same extent. The other birds are all bred out of silver to normal matings. Not quite as powerful, not the same depth of colour, which indicates I'm having like a dilute as one of the fathers or the partners. So what I'm trying to do with them is produce birds like the silver male there, that, again, he's not quite as good as the cream hen because he's not as powerful, but he's a beautiful looking thing, and I'm kind of hoping over the next 12 months to use a male like that and kind of just push him up a little bit, but keep that quality of type, feather quality, and the colour as well. For me, again, I've hit it pretty much square on there with the colour, but that's more luck than good judgment. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to show there, is that we can use the bog standard, or the bread and butter ones, and get out of them something else that's got a different sort of angle of beauty, if you like, and maybe upsets the favourites or the main sort of prize winners, once or twice, and you've achieved something. Then, if you can get a pair of, say, silvers, which I've not managed to do, to win a top award or the top award, that's a real big lift for the fancy, and also for myself.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, isn't it? And it's fascinating to see. I mean, the and again, this is my naive eye, but you look at the cheek marks on that silver, and they look like they've been painted. They are perfect, and it sort of. He's got a really broad head. He's a nice, short, sort of stocky bird, but it just looks, to my eye, it's a real it's a crowd pleaser, isn't it? It's a real bird that sort of says, "Come and have a look at me," and then come and keep looking at me.
Yeah, I think I've noticed again. I've had them so long now that you remember things. I remember more about the birds than I do about birthdays and other anniversaries and things like that you should remember. But of course, the other thing I have learned over that time, or I have noticed, is people like a change. I mean, I could take sort of the normals and the fawns all day long, but when you get something that's maybe not quite as good as them, but very good, oh yeah, they get the applause, and they do get people excited. If you can get excited about birds, silvers, I remember winning, the Zebra Finch Society show 2010 with a pair of black-breasted birds, which, they were phenomenal because they just appeared from nowhere, but they were actually as good, if not better, than the other birds I had. So when they went to the shows, people were literally gobsmacked. It was as if I'd invented them out of a top hat. Because they just came from nowhere, and but they went, I mean, that's the thing, like top footballers, they've got to retire someday.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, what I'm trying to show you there is 3 birds that have got a silver or a dilute influence, as opposed to a pair of straight normals. Yeah. So you kind of work them with the best of what you've produced and take it down that silver route. That's the plan.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid it's come to that time where it is the end of the show. Peter, there aren't enough words, to be honest. You've been incredibly generous with your time, as Linda has.
But we couldn't help you with the sausage rolls this time because you're not eating at the moment lunches.
No, that's true.
I'll tell her, they must have been bad.
I'm wasting away.
I tried to pepper up and say they must have been good, but they must have been bad. But
the sausage rolls were lovely last time, but I've got to get myself fit for the show season.
Oh, well.
And you're going to get fit for the show season. And just behind us, ladies and gents, and as we leave today's episode, I will pan across these because we've got how many on a piece of 15, 16?
That's something like that, 16, 17
16, 17. Yeah. We've got 16 or 17 fawn zebra finch hens behind us, and they are testament to this man's skill, to this man's ability, to this man's dedication, and to this man's knowledge of how to bear birds. And when I tell you that...
And a bit of luck.
But when I tell you that there's, there is very little between them, I don't say that lightly. They are of incredible quality, Peter. And I mean, you must be absolutely thrilled to have those birds here, not just for this year, but for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, every year, if you have a decent breeze or a good year, you get blessed with certain things, and the fawn hens, particularly this year, are the best set of fawn hens I've ever bred. It's a shame there's not, another half a dozen cockbirds to go with them, but they're going to be really useful for the breeding plan next time. I really couldn't have wished for better as a set of hens, but no, I feel they're special. Whether other people think they're special, that's for them to decide. I think I threw a black cheek in there for you because you like the black cheeks, and unfortunately the black cheeks I've bred this year, they're not in good enough feather. So yeah, I am particularly proud of that set of birds, and there are more. It's just that some of them are I say not in as good a feather, but there are a few later bred ones to go in with them that are just as good. So yeah, wonderful. Been blessed with those, definitely.
Wonderful stuff. Well, listen, everyone. Pete, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time, as always. It's always good to see you. If you've enjoyed the video, smash a like, hit the subscribe button, and share the living bejesus out of it. We won't leave it 2.5 years till we come back to see this man.
I hope not. I really do. I enjoyed it myself. It's been great.
Bless you. Until next time, everyone, take care.
Bye.